Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Commander, tough rules, and cool interactions, episode 177. Today's episode is going to be in response to a bonus question I gave in the comments from last week's video. It was really bad of me to laugh at that in response thing. It was something that I wanted to include in that video, in the original video, but I felt that that video was already long enough and complex enough that it didn't need additional stuff weighing it down. So let's get right into this. In last week's video, I was covering Miracle and how it is an alternative cost. Well, one of the cards that I mentioned in the video was Cyclonic Rift, which is an instant for 1 in a blue, and it says, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. But then it has Overload for 6 and a blue, and if you end up overloading the Rift, you now return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Overload is an alternative cost, and we can see in the comprehensive rules from section 118.9c that an alternative cost doesn't change a spell's mana cost, only what its controller has to pay to cast it. Spells and abilities that ask for that spell's mana cost still see the original value. And what this means is that when you overload your Cyclonic Rift, and I counter it with a mana drain that says counter target spell, at the beginning of your next main phase, add an amount of colorless equal to that spell's mana value, that I will always add only 2 colorless mana to my mana pool, even though you overloaded it and cast it for 6 and a blue for a total mana value of 7, I only add 2 mana to my mana pool. Similarly, with another alternative cost, if you use Omniscience to cast your Psych Rift for free, and I counter it with the mana drain, I will still net only 2 mana on my next main phase. So now let's take a look at the card Entreat the Dead, which is a sorcery for X, X, black, black, black. And it says to return X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then it has its own miracle cost for X black black, which means that if you draw it as your first card for the turn, and you then cast that card for its alternate cost, its miracle cost of X black black, and you even get around the timing restrictions of the card because you're casting it via the resolution of the miracle effect. So the question becomes this. When you cast it via the Miracle alternative cost, you pump 7 mana into it, 2 to cover the black-black, and then 5 more for the generic, allowing you to return 5 creatures from your graveyard. When I cast my mana drain to counter it, how much mana will I get on my next main phase? Will it be 2 colorless mana because of the black-black miracle cost and X being treated as 0? Or is it 7 because of the total amount of mana I spent casting the spell via its miracle cost? Or is it 3 because of the black, black, black in the original card's cost and then X being considered 0? Or do we take the 5 that was pumped into the X and add the black, black, black from the original cost of the card, giving 8 colorless mana? Or is it something else? A possible answer that I haven't listed yet. Feel free to pause the video and think about this if you do want to figure it out before I provide the answer. Okay, so the answer is none of the ones that I provided. The actual amount of mana that my mana drain will give in this case is 13 mana. The reason behind this is due to CR 601.2b, and there is a lot of text in that rule. Here is just a snippet of that rule, and I've even edited some out of what you're seeing now on screen. But this is the part that we actually care about, and it says that if the spell has a variable cost that will be paid as it's being cast, such as X in its mana cost, the player announces the value of that variable. So what this means is that when you're casting the Entreat via its miracle, it is still retaining its original mana cost. That isn't changing. Yes, you're paying a different amount. Importantly, you're leaving out one of the X's in its cost, but you're still using the same value of X. When you pay the X black black for the miracle, you're not saying I've got 7 mana to throw at this spell, so that's what it costs. What you are saying, what you are doing, is that you're saying this spell has an X variable in its cost, and it's an alternative cost, and in its effect, I'm choosing for that X variable to be a 5. And then later, the game is going to look at what that value was that was picked for the variable in other stages, like when the game needs to know how many legal targets are to be picked for its effect. And then again, later on down the line, it will calculate the cost to be paid, and it will see that you chose 5 for X. And so it does set your cost as 5 generic mana and then black for the mana. This means that the game will also see the spell's mana cost while on the stack as 5 black for a total of 13 mana. There are more than just mana drain and plasm capture. I almost wanted to say plasma capture. That's plasm capture. For it, when that this can make a big difference too. If you've built your deck around things that care about being high mana value spells that are being cast, maybe you have creatures like Dika, Fractal Theorist, Ovika, Enigma Goliath, and Saruman, the White Hand, then these all have triggered abilities that care about the mana value of the spell cast. There's also a lot of non-creature permanents that care about this kind of thing as well, with cards like Metallurgic Summonings, and of course, one of the most popular ones, Shark Typhoon. But there's just lots of other great ones out there, like Chrome Host Seed Shark, Erratic Cyclops, Geometric Nexus, and Levon, Cultist of Tiamat. Saying the cards' names, oh my goodness, it is a tongue twister having to read these out as card names. Funny enough, Saruman has almost 8,000 decks on EDH Rec. He's one of the more popular commanders in Grixis colors, and that's one of the more popular 3-color colors. And you'll see cards like Metallurgic Summonings and Shark Typhoon on his list. If you do search for it, you will find those two on his list. But none of the others that I've listed show up at all, despite Fling and other Fling-type effects showing up in over a third of all decks. So one thing I will say is that, yeah, there's not a lot of cards out there like Entreat the Dead that have 2 X's in their mana cost and a miracle of just a single X. I can find 3 in total. Entreat the Dead, Entreat the Angels, and then there is Bonfire of the Damned. 2 of those are in colors that Saruman can run. So the options, they're not super great, but I hope that you guys do happen to have decks like this Saruman or any of these other cards that care about it, and that this video helps you to increase the tools that you have available to you. But more importantly, they're going to be cool things to do. I know a lot of YouTubers talk about how they don't really play games to win them, they play games to have memories. I'm very much in that same boat. I like to do really, really cool things, and doing this whole miracle shenanigans where the mana value of the spell is actually a lot higher because the X thing is kept in one. I'm going off script here, so I'm probably ranting, but that is a really, really cool thing to have that play out. That if you did a value of X, 5 for one of these things, that you're only putting 7 mana into it, but you're getting an X, a mana value of 13. That's really, really cool. Especially with Entreat the Dead, it's really cool in a Saruman deck that is built around flinging effects, as you can bring back all those creatures that are in your graveyard that you have flung in addition to the tokens that you've been flinging, and that'll provide you with a massive new creature to fling with. So I think there's some really, really cool tech there, especially if you've built your deck around these kinds of cards that care about casting and mana value of non-creature spells or the mana value of instants and sorceries and things like that. Some really, really cool things. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about the crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta. And I guess for anybody sticking around, I wasn't originally going to put this in the video, but whatever, who cares? Crick and Crick, son of Yawgmoth. I'll actually go and dig up the photos. I didn't actually download them before making the video. Crick, son of Yawgmoth, and what's the Scarecrow? The legendary Scarecrow. Now I gotta look it up. Advanced search. It is white, blue, black, red, green. Creature type. Scare. There should only be the one. Yeah, Reaper King. That's what his name is. Yeah, Reaper King. If you guys were to cast Crick, son of Yawgmoth, for paying the 2 life for all 3 of its Phyrexian manas, and somebody countered it, or anything was done that cares about the mana value, even if you did just pay the life, again, similar thing. All it cares about is that that's what the mana value of it. You may have only spent 4 mana on it and paid 6 life, but if it were countered with a mana drain, then you would get 7 mana. Similar with Reaper King. He costs 2 and a white, 2 and a blue, 2 and a black, 2 and a red, 2 and a green. So if you happen to actually pay just Wooburg for him, if you did all the colored mana pips for that, and you actually only spent that 5 mana, doesn't really matter. If he were countered from a mana drain, he would net 10 mana. For the player that cast the mana drain. So little bonus facts there for those kind of things. Are there any other weird ones you guys can think of? I think that's all of them, really, because those are not really alternative costs. I debated including them in this video because they weren't alternative cost things like this is why I shouldn't go off script, because now I'm drawing a blank on overload. Yeah. So all right, whatever. Before this video gets even longer, you guys have a good one. If you're still sticking around, you're weird. Why are you listening to me rant and rave this deep into it? You're strange people. You're also watching Magic Rules stuff. This is some crazy intense stuff. I'm glad you guys find it interesting, because I of course find this very, very interesting. Now I'm going even more off script. Oh my gosh. All right, we're calling it here. Ta-ta. 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 Goodbye.